So we'll start off by talking about the economic and political statistics of Japan, Singapore, Cambodia, and Vietnam. So as you can see from the charts over here, in terms of population, it's actually the green color line, as you can see from this graph. And currently, we all know that Japan is currently facing a very high elderly population. So therefore, Japan's population is really going down till now. And for the rest of us, we're actually all going up together. And in terms of the economic progression, as you can see, Japan is currently the lowest at 1.7%, followed by Singapore. And we have the two developing ASEAN countries, Vietnam and Cambodia, currently clocking the highest economic growth. But you have to realize that this data over here, which is that currently the GDP is still pretty low at only about 25,000 million, and for Cambodia it's about 2.5 million. So the reason why these two countries are actually having very high spurts of growth currently is due to the fact that they are still not at 100% development, and they still have room for improvement and for development. So for the outline, today we'll be covering the 4 countries of our groups, and in between we're actually talking a bit of the theoretical approach to biopolitics, and finally we'll end off with a conclusion. And in terms of the Japanese case study for Shibuya Ward, the reason why we chose Shibuya was because we felt that it was an interesting example whereby they're actually trying to increase the capacity of the land space by through the use of Tokyo Group and trying to create this mega city that sits on top of the current land space of Shibuya. And as you can see, the main thing that they're trying to do here is to create a creative culture, and this was propagated since the 1996. And the 2 main development guidelines that have guided Shibuya to where it is today is actually the 2007 development guidelines, whereby they actually tried to renew the city space by having public discussions and also to reduce the impact on the environment while ensuring the densification of Shibuya. So it's a kind of a sustainable development. And finally, in 2010, they had the redevelopment plan, for which is actually including more of these shopping malls and increasing the tourist attractiveness of the site. Okay, so I'll pass it on.
I talk about first part. This part is an example of Japan. We pick up Shibuya as Japanese example. After World War II, as you can see, there are rich culture land, Inca house, family shops for local people, and jail line. We think that we can separate the type of building, controlled and uncontrolled. We call uncontrolled, for example, agriculture land, Inca house, and family shops. And controlled is, for example, jail line. In the term of period economic growth, urban development starting toward Tokyo Olympic and become the base of development. As you can see, there are formalized apartments, family shops, and Tokyo department store and jail line. In this time, district was made and this land was changed controlled area, so Japan could develop.
From 1945 to now, formalized apartments, 7 Tokyo stores and jail stores still exist. From 2000, some companies, especially Tokyo Group, are constructing a new place. Because that expansion, unlike before 2000, expansion have nothing to do with control, it was added more. So expansion is present in the air about the control because Shibuya's typology is a valley. In the future Shibuya, everything will be done expansion, so people may not go to the control. If this happens, the original economy of control will not turn and may fail.
I talk about Second part is Singapore's history. First is before 1970s Singapore. As you can see from this slide, this picture shows the map of Singapore, and there are some traditional buildings which from the map exist in small discrete communities. And in this time, government did not have full master plan for every estate, and development was self-organized. Therefore, there were many uncontrolled areas and buildings. Second slide is after 1970s, post-independence, the government wanted to realize a new image of the city. And they thus began to organizing the nation into controlled and homogeneously government. About the traditions and communities of the past. So while after the change, Singapore's economy developed, but cultures and communities similarly become homogeneous.
So why this such a situation happened? And we need to go back to the concept of capitalistic economic system. Because we cannot take into account of that development is inevitably aiming economic growth. The role of capital in capitalism is just increasing capital itself. And to keep this circulation, two factors are needed. First one is abstract labor, and that creates exchange value or market value. Second one is surplus value, and that is needed to reproduce on an enlarged scale. And economic growth is achieved by these two factors. In capitalism, one of the most important things is keeping the production of labor. Naturally, labor are supplied from citizens. So it is necessary to consider civil society that is able to do this reproduction. So what is needed to reproduce? What is needed to realize such a society?
Okay, for capitalistic economy, we need abstract labor, and citizens in each community need abstract labor. So how can we reproduce the citizen? How can we use abstract labor again and again? Then we think it's culture. For the saving culture and keeping culture is balance between the public and private. What is public and the private? Public sphere is places where social norms are enforced and people share cultures, ensure intercommunication of citizens. For example, in Japan, Akihabara. Akihabara is a place where so many people who have each culture, so many cultures, and gathering share the culture, each culture. And private sphere is internal spaces where subjects have each culture, in short, private life of citizens. It's like otaku in Japan. Otaku have each culture in each private space, and the otaku is gathering in Akihabara and sharing the culture. And this is the influx of foreigners in Shibuya. We will analyze Shibuya from the point of view of the balance between the private and public. And this foreigner means that not only from abroad, also from countryside. And this red one is controlled one. The red one is controlled by government, urbanization government. And the blue one is uncontrolled one. So I mean, in the blue diagram, so many small communities to share each culture. And in 1980, government has controlled all in Shibuya. And you can look at the orange one. Orange one is leap development space. Now the Shibuya's mayor is working with Tokyo Group's company. And then we think, there's a small community in the red one, like a Chonakai in Japan. Chonakai is a so small community to share each culture, each information, and so on. And in Shibuya's case, because of this small community like a Chonakai, they can keep the culture and information under the administration of government control. And expansion, in the orange one, expansion, there are no culture, no Chonakai, like a small community, so we can keep the culture in the orange space. So I think it's a problem recently in Japan, in Shibuya. And this is the Singapore's case. Before 1970, Singapore was controlled by British government, like a colony. And then the red one is controlled by British government, and the blue one is controlled, not uncontrolled. So there are so many small community to share culture. But after the 1970 of Independent Day of Singapore, the Singapore government controlled all Singapore's people, like 30% Chinese live there, 20% Malay people live there, and others live here like that. So the culture wasn't remain so long time. So I mean, it's not continuously keeping the culture.
And then move to Cambodia. And this is the diagram that shows about the economic growth in Cambodia and expectation in 2020. And the population in Phnom Penh was growing year by year, as you see in the table. And they are 2077 slum in Cambodia, and you can see in the map that show the slum located in Phnom Penh. And now I choose one example about the slum in Phnom Penh, that is the building that it is a slum in Phnom Penh, and it was built in 1960 and was destroyed in 2017. And there are 458 rooms and around 500 families live in their building. And this is the picture before the Khmer Rouge and after the Khmer Rouge. And this is the picture that shows the culture between the building. And this is the picture, the last picture of the building before it was destroyed in 2017. And for this building, people get $1,040 per month to move their living. And after destroying the building, they will build the business building. And as we know that it is a slum area, so the people, most of the people that live there, they start with the low and middle income and so for these new developments, this new development is considered to have to increase the economic capacity, but it's likely to the culture will be developed too in over 3 years.
So next one I'm going to tell you is something about Vietnam's economy and culture. Before 1986, the inflation in Vietnam reached its peak, which led to the extremely hard time in the Vietnamese people's life. After the devaluation policy, a Vietnam economy began to have a streak of restoration and achieve certain results in the economies. The periods between 1986 and 1990, average GDP of Vietnam reached 4.4% per year. From 1991 to 2000, that were 7.6% per year. Along with that, sales rates that the culture of Vietnam was disappearing. So, Central Resolution 5 and the 8th course in the 1998 on culture, Vietnam has made development steps to achieve better quality and appears than before. Furthermore, cultural thinking has a development step, cultural awareness at all levels in the government and the whole population is raised. After 30 years, traditional culture is respected and basically restore the tangible cultural value, and intangible cultural value is set according to the international standards. So and nowadays the Vietnamese can more chance to access our country culture and learn about experience from Japan, from Singapore. So the Vietnamese can apply this in the developing economic and culture. Yes.
In conclusion, it is really our group believes that we should learn from both Singapore's and Japan's examples. Cambodia and Vietnam currently have a huge instance of good development of its economy with culture. However, when Cambodia and Vietnam reach 100% development, they must ensure that they continue to maintain their culture and not repeat the mistake of Syria and Singapore.
Some ASEAN countries can learn from mistakes of Singapore and Japan. That means they should lose the community, because if it happens, it will lead to lost identity. In relation to the UN SDG goals, we have to understand that sustainable development cannot come without both economy or culture. The reason why balance is important is because of cultural aesthetics, where it is important that society has ethos and culture. Yes. Meaning here ethos is social norms and bonds. Bonds that are reflected in the public sphere and private sphere. And virtue means social happiness contentedness with the state. Namely, you cannot have a sustainable economy without culture, and you cannot have a sustainable culture without economy.
So therefore, to end off and wrap up everything, what we are just saying here today is that we believe that in terms of economic development, it must always happen with culture at the same time, such that it can become sustainable. And even before we talk about the UN Sustainable Development Goals, we should actually start to look at the idea of culture and how economy progresses together with it. Instead of what happened in Singapore, whereby the continuously changing culture resulted in this loss of identity, and people do not know actually who they're loyal towards and what is their main culture at the end of the day. Okay, with that I think we wrap up today. Thank you so much.
Could you break the slide? right to learn. Yeah. I think the word should learn the mistake or to avoid the mistake. To learn the experience and to avoid the mistake, I think. If we just learn the mistake, maybe not really good to learn. Do you think so?
Yeah, that's right.
Thank you for your presentation. It's good. You're talking about the population, right?
Yes.
And you have the lesson from Japan mostly, and another countries that your group consists of. And what about aging society happen in the country? You know.
So you mean Japan?
Yes, in Japan, mostly in Japan. Because your country faced aging society for a long time, and it just went from to some country in Japan, and I talked to someone. They faced that they try to keep the community exist, because the population is they face the depopulation problem. The younger people move to the big cities to work to find some jobs like that, but leave the elderly in the community themselves. So in just a few years, these people will gone. So the community will be gone as well. So what kind of this problem? Do you have any idea to solve this problem in Japan?
As in you're talking about policy or in terms of policy, is it? Okay, I think with regards to the question, it cannot be really a question that can be answered solely by policy, because I think it involves a lot of the idea of the built environment as well. It means architecture and how you actually try to bring back the entire community together. So, to be honest, in terms of policy, I don't really have a very good example to solve the question, because I think even when Singapore is facing the situation, we have not really resolved the idea of how to make people actually take care of the elderly, even though, for example, in terms of the public housing in Singapore, we have already tried to create this kind of public housing, whereby you actually let the elderly and the younger people stay together at a subsidized rate. But of course with that, I think in terms of the statistics, it has not really proven to work so far, because first of all, many people, after they come back from work, they want to be more involved in their direct family first before their parents. So parents become something that you just throw to the weekend to handle. Yeah, so I think in terms of Japan, it's going to be even harder situation to resolve because of the scale of Japan versus that of Singapore. Like maybe you can beat Singapore within like Shibuya and the neighboring Tokyo or something like that. So I think this question has to do mainly with the idea of education, whereby the younger generation have to actually understand the value of their own, have to understand like the importance of taking care of their own parents, because it's actually part of this national sustainability goal, whereby if each of them are able to take care of their parents, then in terms of the economy, it can actually help to assist in terms of the safety nets funding as well. But at the same time, we also have to understand that this younger generation, they actually have to move abroad, because in terms of today's economic development, staying within their own rural countryside will not be any economic benefit to them as well. Yeah, so I think to resolve, it has to come from the idea of education and also through the form of built architecture as well. Yeah, just to answer generically. Yeah.
Anyway, I estimate this group made the new gate. This gate is show the problem between cultural development and economic development or sustainable development. And so I estimate it highly, and next year, next year students must make a much more rational explanation. There are many confusions. But history say only the country can make can make mass consumption market, and only the country develop a mass consumption market better change and subculture. Only such kind of country can develop even after economic groups, branch economic groups. Without these, only the necessary material, the need is only for necessary material. So therefore, it is very difficult to develop. So this kind of discussion is delivered in 1960s of the United States of America.
Oh yeah, yes.
Yeah. So it's very interesting. We the professor group must study what happened after 1960s. What happened between culture and capitalism.
So I think basically, I think basically what you're talking about is the idea of Fordism that happened in 1950s with the collapse of Detroit. So basically, and you also talk about the idea of subcultures as well, whereby for us, through our reading of Foucault, in this part over here, the idea of citizens and the idea of institutions, we understand subcultures as a means of control, for which the government actually tries to control and tries to self-organize the citizens based on what they actually are interested in. And of course, and you also talk about the idea of materialism, whereby in terms of having mass consumption, will you only then be able to progress the economy in a certain sense. However, the reason why we actually chose to talk about surplus value here is because that in terms of mass consumption, it's only through the idea of surplus value will we then be able to actually progress and advance society to the next stage because of the introduction of new machinery. So in terms of Marxist discourse over here in terms of capitalism, what he says is that in terms of it's only when you have surplus value, and it's only when you have surplus value that companies and organizations will actually want to further and to increase the production of certain kind of labor or even certain kind of products. And this is when you actually have mass consumption, and then therefore you can push the economy. So in terms of that, without any form of surplus value, there is no way that you can push the economy towards a certain kind of mass consumption, because you don't even have the supply chain and the supply production to actually help you to achieve this level of mass consumption in the first place. Yeah. So ultimately, when we try to combine culture and economic growth together, we are talking about this idea of cultural aesthetics, whereby we are talking about the idea of ethos and virtue, and a certain kind of happiness within society. And yeah, I hope that helps to add on to the yeah. Okay, thank you.
Any last comment?
Yes.
Two comments.
I understand you had a very intense discussion within those 3 days. That is very short, but I understand what you're trying to explore the ideas. But for me, the just clear division of controlled or uncontrolled for the urban development is little too oversimplified. And since those complex redevelopments in central urban area, you have to involve many different stakeholders, and they have different interests. So it's kind of difficult thing to deal with. And I just want to share my experience on the Shibuya's case, because since I'm being serving for the committee member of the Shibuya Design Committee, who was responsible for design reviews for the past 10 years. So for all those 5 development projects, and most of them will be open. One opened last year, and 3 of them will open this fall. Because about 5 years ago, we went through the series of design reviews. We had more than 25 meetings to review the qualitative aspects of the development. And then in that committee, like two representatives from one from like a merchant, local merchants organization, another one from Chodaikai. So with them, those local people, we discussed how the development will be. And for example, one development just completed last year called Shibuya Stream. There's a skyscraper sitting on the podium, and the bottom of the podium is kind of integration or in interconnection to the underground subways, and there's a Shibuya River running there. So and as a part of their development, they prepared a kind of plaza on the river, and those plazas are expected to be used as a part of their local festival. So when the actually called the omikoshi is moving around, they can park omikoshi, they can have a kind of local gathering. All those things are combined. So it's not, we try to kind of, even though it's a kind of big development and initiated by Tokyo Corporation, we try to keep the kind of podium part, like somewhere near the ground level will be kind of contribution to the local community, not only for the development itself. So I just want to share all this. So it's not very simple, but we have to think kind of better way of managing those developments. It's just comment.
I'd like to have just one comment and one question. Could you go back to the photo of Singapore and yeah. So actually the urban cities has grown up from the agricultural field and industrial, and now post-industrial age. So each city, yeah, it's good to criticize that all the the Asian modern cities are coming more similar and similar, but actually we can see the different cultures in each photos. So each city has a different kind of mode of cultural expressions, so maybe you need to kind of respect that kind of new modern culture. Old culture are transformed, but still they have the identification like that. And second question, go back to the final. Yeah, the capitalism isn't. It's a Takeda-san's word, but I couldn't see what is abstract labor by the citizens, and I think we need the consumption something. Citizens consume, yeah, something, and surplus value. So you just explain about what's abstract labor. Please define abstract labor.
Okay, so in terms of Karl Marx, in terms of Karl Marx's book on capitalism, he actually defined labor in two forms. One is actually concrete labor, and the other is known as abstract labor. So in terms of abstract labor, it's actually the kind of imaginative, qualitative quality of labor, whereby, if for example, concrete labor is known as the kind of labor that you do, the mundane chores that you do, then abstract labor is actually determined as some kind of a value-added skill that you have, which makes the production faster. So let's say in terms of China's example, these people, they're actually very well versed in terms of the skills which they have to actually do this very fast manufacturing. So this is the competitive advantage that China has over any other countries because of this idea of abstract labor, because they are skilled in a certain sense that makes them faster than the rest of the world, for example. So the only way that you can actually have this abstract labor is through the idea of institution and how they actually train citizens from the start, which then again is the idea that is controlled by the government. So the reason why China is so good today at this production methods, right, is because ever since the closure of China from the rest of the world, isolation, they actually have been training these citizens to actually do this very manual labor, such that they're actually able to increase their skills, even from school, to actually be able to do this production very, very fast. Yeah, so this is the idea of training.
Is that
Later.
yeah? We keep the discussion later. And thank you so much for your presentation.
Thank you so much.
So now we have finished all the programs, so I would like to invite Professor Dairo to give the very short closing remarks.
Over the last 3 days, we have focused on the sustainable development goals, and then also focused on the issues in Southeast Asian countries as well as in Japan. One is the effects of the modernization, urbanization, all those problems which urbanization has caused. How to tackle those problems, but not repeating the failure of the advanced countries. So we go digging into deep, not only the surface of the problems, but also ethos and the other values that we have to take into consideration, especially when we are faced with global warming, which has been caused, of course, by the human activities. How to control those human activity is a major issue, but it is not easy to tackle because we don't care usually about global warming. Only when we are faced with the damage caused by global warming, we come to feel that we have to do something. But each one of the society, what can I do? What the society can do? What the government can do? What the community can do? That unfortunately, we do not have a big picture how to combine all those small elements into one big strategy. Well, that's what we are working on, in my opinion. And again, I'm getting old. I'm 65, and Professor Kobayashi is also 65. Major topic between us is about pension. Well, why I'm talking about this is that, most of the countries in Asia will face the very serious aging society. Lots of issues and problems caused by the aging. But we are okay. We would be gone very soon. So we can enjoy the fruit of the system of the pension or welfare. But I'm sorry, all those people in the younger generation, they may not be enjoying the things we enjoy. Sorry, we were born earlier than you are. So you really have to think about the future. So please come back next year with a better idea to solve the problem for yourself, not for us. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So we have a lunch and informal gathering. Before that, we would like to take a group photo, maybe. Yeah, so maybe this will be a background. Okay, so we need to arrange the space, so we'll come back here in 5 minutes. I think. We may take a toilet break.
We need a space in this room. So